Racism takes a toll on the brain, research shows.
Right.
Racism has negatively impacted generations of people, leading to discrimination, lost economic opportunities, racist policing, and incarceration, and in many cases, death. But even when the impact of racism is not so apparent or in the headlines, a pernicious effect of racial discrimination and structural racism can take a toll on the brain and mental health, emerging research shows. And look at the terms that they're talking about here. Structural racism.
Right.
Structural racism. That this is not just random acts of racism. Right. They are speaking about a hierarchy, a structure that has been put into place, a system of racism.
Right. And I'm not gonna send it to you, but the funny thing, I keep a lot of stuff in my phone, right? And in my phone, I got a whole bunch of links to systematic racism. So there's racist, right here I got racist gap in men's sentences. Everyone does drugs, but only minorities are punished for it. Those wrongly convicted and then later, let's see. Sorry, that's not. Black children are far more likely to be tried as adults, more likely to be given a life sentence. Black former convicts get less employee callbacks than white former convicts. How black names are hired less than white names with an identical resume. Right. High schools with mostly black and Latino children are far more less likely to offer courses in algebra and chemistry. How black children are more likely to be suspended in white children or even in preschool.
Damn.
Relationships between patients, race, and the intents of hospital services. How inheritance is the biggest factor in prosperity and widen wage gap. So those are the certain things I have on systematic racism, and there's a whole bunch of links that can prove that the stuff right here is systematic.
Damn right. Give that a hand. A list of horrifying statistics.
Right.
And you're wondering why you're depressed. You're wondering why you're on drugs. You're wondering why you're an alcoholic. You're wondering why there's such a host of mental illnesses that yourself and the people around you are enduring. Well, let's hear what the researchers have to say about this.
Right, let's see what they got to say.
The data are already concerning. Experiences of racial discrimination are consistently linked with mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, PTSD, as well as physical ailments such as diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. Black Americans, for instance, are about twice as likely as white Americans to develop dementia. You're wondering why you see so many brothers and sisters running around the street with dementia. You're wondering why your neighborhood has such a high substance abuse rate. PTSD, like that's something that the Vietnam vets come home with.
Right.
You're wondering why you're suffering from PTSD. You're always paranoid. You're waking up in cold sweats.
Right.
Well, the researchers says it's due to structural and systematic racism.
Right.
You're thinking that you're just a product of your environment. You're thinking you just got it rough because you grew up in the ghetto. You're not factoring in how many subconscious things are going on in your mind just to try to combat structural racism.
That's right.
Systematic racism. Let's keep going. Racism is its own stressor.
Right.
And one that could not be easily avoided. Damn right it can't be easily avoided. Where are you going to go in your city, in your country, in this world, and not have to deal with this white supremacist system that rains down racism upon you?
Right.
And this is what the experts are saying. We're not saying this.
Right.
We live this, but this is what the experts are saying.
Right.
And so just moving on to the next section in this article, constant vigilance and racial stress wear down the brain. It wears down the brain. You wonder why it's so tough for you to get through law school, to get through college, these college loans, to get through high school.
Right.
You know, to get your GED. You wonder why sometimes it's so difficult for you to pass that test or to get past that exam, the MCATs, and all these other tests that you got to take to become a nurse and all that. Sometimes you wonder why it's so stressful. Well, the researchers here are saying that constant vigilance and racial stress wear down the brain. And what is this constant vigilance they talk about? You don't realize subconsciously that you are constantly aware of the fact that you're black.
Right.
In a country that your forefathers built.
That's right.
You have to
and still building.
And still building. Damn right. You have to have constant vigilance of the fact that you're black. Right. Of the fact that you're discriminated against. The article says recent neuroimaging. What's neuroimaging? This is taking pictures of your brain activity. Research shows that encounters with racial discrimination on the individual level and structural racism at the societal level change how the brain responds to potential threats. Right. Racial discrimination is a type of trauma. Right. A type of trauma that is often invalidated or questioned by society. Damn right. Every single time we bring up racial discrimination, some oppressor has to come out and tells us that we're somehow mistaken, that this society has somehow evolved, that this society is above racial discrimination, how there's been so much affirmative action and so much counterplays put into place that the mere fact that you would complain about racial discrimination, you should be invalidated by bringing up the very thought that you could be discriminated against racially. Well, here the researchers who conduct neuroimaging experiments on the brain show that this type of discrimination is trauma to the brain. Right. It's trauma to you not only on an individual level, but on a societal level. The idea that someone has been discriminated against is often questioned. Well, the police will bust you upside your head and you will go complain about it. And the first question that they have, well, what did you do? Did you comply? Right. Did you put your hand on the steering wheel like they asked you to? Did you reach for something? Did you not comply?